Hi, everybody. I'm Nina Boski, and with me is a wonderful, as I like to say, kick-ass woman on the move, Miss Erin Fajardo, and she is a mother in honor of Mother's Day, but she's so much more than a mother. She is a wonderful human being. She happens to be a client of mine, and I wanted to do a segment today around Mother's Day and being a mother. And when I think of you, Erin, welcome, first of all.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, yeah. When I think of mothers and I think of the job that you have, especially during this pandemic, my hat goes off to you. And I'll tell you why, is because for those of us that do not have small children running around in the house and have to work full time, yes, is it challenging? You know, especially if you have a spouse or you have a partner and you're trying to coordinate schedules or working from home. Are those challenging? Absolutely. But when I got to experience you during our session and how much you had to juggle, which was work, husband, and two little kids running around, I said, wow, we've got to do a segment for mothers because you handle it so well. So tell me, how do you do it?
I can tell you that it was an evolutionary process. The first week, both my husband and I were like, oh my gosh, we have this whole new challenge ahead of us. How are we going to deal with this? And, obviously your coaching has helped me. I have read a few books. Rachel Hollis has some great books, and Mel Robbins. And just kind of listening to them and watching them because they're very active on social media. They also have children, and kind of drawing from these resources. But then living through each week, it seemed that each week got a little bit better because you're going to go through this adjustment period, right? Mm-hmm. I would say probably by the third or fourth week, my husband and I figured out some sort of flow, and I call it controlled chaos, because we both have to understand what our priorities are, what we're willing to do, and it's not like you can just, here's the schedule, this is what we're following. It changes every day, and
I would imagine every moment too.
Every moment, because you're also having to sort of take care of, two young boys. I have an 8-year-old and a 5-year-old. And sometimes I'm on a call and they're screaming in the background. I don't know if it's because they're playing or someone's hurt.
and you know what was interesting is when we were having, this is why I want to do this segment. When we were having our session, she had to keep moving because the kids were moving. There was a lot of things going on, right? And so I sat there going to myself, how is she doing this? And she's managing it with such ease. And I want to talk to the mothers out there. You have tools. You're listening. You're being mindful. What I'd like to really know is, how do you handle the challenges? Because you're obviously very mindful. You have tools, but there's a lot of mothers out there that are just feeling so stressed. What would you say to them?
I would say try to be present in your body. And it's very hard to do that when you have a lot of anxiety. You almost have to take a minute to recenter yourself, because a lot of people talk about work-life balance. And one of the things, Rachel Hollis, she's an author and also a mother, she said it's not necessarily about juggling and work-life balance, it's about staying centered. And I do feel like that's,
bing.
Yes, and I do feel like that's a better way of thinking about it, because there's no way to balance it. there's no way that you're ever in a day, especially now, that you're going to balance work and kids and be like, oh yeah, today everything is balanced. It doesn't work that way. You either have crazy deadlines and your kids are screaming at you, or maybe one of your kids gets sick and you have to be in a meeting. I mean, there's all of these unpredictable factors that can happen. It's a lot less controlled, right? Versus like before, pre-COVID-19, where you can drive and listen to your Audible book and go into the office and eat lunch. And now it's more like, okay, I'm home and I have to cook 3 meals a day and also help my kids with their homework and also manage to do my work. And so when you think about, especially with 2 children, you think about how many jobs am I actually doing in a day, right? And so ask for help. Ask for help, right?
Yes.
That
Yes.
So I have to kind of, when I say recenter myself and be present, I have to understand there are other people in this house that are perfectly capable of doing things. And when you have anxiety, and I'm going to bring up Mel Robbins, because she had a really great post on her Facebook page about anxiety and how you tend to overperform or underperform. I tend to overperform, which isn't, yeah, it's great to perform, but at the same time, when you're overperforming, you're not giving other people a chance or opportunity to help you. So it's not really fair to you. It's not really fair to them. So what I realized is my 8-year-old can make lunch for my 4-year-old.
See, that's the key here, because I think a lot of times mothers, and a lot of us, it doesn't have to be just mothers, but we move into the perfection pictures, right? And we want it to be perfect. As a perfect mom, I'm going to do it all. And I love what you just said about asking for help. So how did you do that? You must have gotten to a point where you just said, okay, wait a minute, I can't do this, all of this, because I know you are an overachiever.
Yes. And that kicked into, my anxiety kicked into overdrive. My overachiever kicked into overdrive. And I had to come back inside of my body, recenter myself and say, this isn't healthy. I need to change something. And I was trying to manage all of my kids' schoolwork. And when I recentered myself and understood that I was taking on my job, I was taking on the full-time house cleaner, maid, chef, and two additional teachers' jobs. No, Erin, you can't do that. And so I talked to my husband, and he is an amazing partner. He doesn't take life as seriously as I do in a lot of cases. He has a very great sense of humor, so that helps me.
Yes.
And he put together a whole Google Calendar of other assignments. He brought in a rolling whiteboard because I gave him the space to do that. I'm like, you know what?
Because you would have done it all.
Yes.
Yes, in the past.
It's like, I need you to take this over. And he's like, great, cool. And so he brought in the rolling whiteboard. He wrote down all their assignments because I have a lot of calls during the week and he doesn't have as many calls. So he's like, Erin, and at the end of the day, I would say, I am so exhausted. And I literally would say, I don't even know why. I don't know why I'm so tired. I said that. I literally said, I don't know why I'm so tired.
Well, but here's the thing. You don't know why, but if you looked at what you did all day long, you would know why. And I want to just, for the people that are listening, for the mothers that are listening and watching this, there's a couple takeaways. Ask for support. Being willing to do that. Getting centered is another thing. You got to get centered. And center for each of us is different. But the thing that I know that you do well, the other thing that you have really incorporated is something we teach in our trainings, which is the self-strategy sessions. Tell us how that actually works for you too, because in some ways you're strategizing with your husband. So taking in, saying, how are we going to, kind of divide and conquer. So tell us a little bit about how you've incorporated that into your schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I think, in the beginning of the day, my husband and I talk about what Zoom calls our kids have to be on, what calls we have to be on, and we take it day to day. And sometimes we might not have as a serious meeting where we're just meeting with coworkers, and it's okay if my son kind of creeps up in the back. And then there's other meetings where, I'm giving a presentation to a client. So I have to kind of be quiet and maybe keep my camera off or not keep my camera off. And so we take it day by day. And when the expectations are set in the beginning of the day, that sets the tone for the rest of the day. And so you don't have this unpredictable, like you can't like take a deep breath, because you're constantly going from one thing to another. And so you can't just you can't center, you can't get back inside of your body, because it's almost like when you and I were talking, it's like survival mode, right?
Yes.
And so when we strategize that, it's actually great, because it sets the pace, it sets the tone, it sets the expectation. You're responsible for this today as my partner, as my husband. I'm responsible for this today as the mom. And then
if your older child, if you have children that are a little older, maybe they can help out, because a lot of times they like at that age to help out. They feel like they're contributing, right? So
yeah,
I think that's really good too. The other thing, so we've got some, not just strategy with your husband, but self strategy. And you hear me saying this a lot, but I know you do it really well, is setting your intention for the day.
Yeah, so I take a look at what my workload is for the week on Sunday. So the day before Monday, because I know, all right, when you're going through the weekend, allow yourself to just kind of take a deep breath and be proud of yourself that you made it through another week, right?
Yes.
And then reflect back on what you're thankful for and practice gratitude, because I have dirty dishes in the sink because they have food in the refrigerator, right? I have a messy house. My kids have a lot of toys. We have our health, we have our sanity, right?
Yep.
Those are things that I like to do. And then I will kind of map out my workload, all the projects I'm working on. What do I have to accomplish for that week, so that I could go into the week, thinking, okay, great. These are the things I have to accomplish. If anyone asks me where I'm at with everything, I pretty much know what my priorities are, right?
Yes.
There might be things that you can push off. That's great, because that's one less thing you have to do, because there might be 5 urgent things and then 10 not so urgent things. Mm-hmm. And that's been a part of my training with you as well.
So one of the things that I think is really important for people that may be listening is you've got to get centered. You've got to have a sense of what your intention is. And you heard Erin, what she said was she strategizes her whole week. Does that mean that everything is going to happen the way that she thinks it's going to? Absolutely not. Okay. Especially when you have 2 small kids and you're at home and you're trying to juggling everybody's schedules. The outside world is unpredictable. But that means you got to get clear about what your inside world is and what it is you want to create. So for you moms, I want you to listen up, because I wanted to do this interview with Erin because she's one of the people that actually applies this concept. And I'm going to tell you that if you can take a step back and look at your day, your week, etc., it's going to help all this chatter that keeps going on and on and on in our heads. And it frees you up, right, Erin? Yes?
Yeah. It does, because, I fight for my time. Seriously, for me, I strongly believe that the mind and the body are very much connected.
They
And,
are, yeah.
when I go for a run, or maybe I'll do like an online kickboxing class if I'm like angry that day, or if I'm sore, I'll do a yoga or something, and so I've kind of gotten in this routine of holding myself accountable. Or it might be just like, I'm going to take a bath, right? Like nobody's going to bother me. I'm going to take a bath. But that is my time. And I want at least an hour a day dedicated to me. And I don't
Yes.
have to feel guilty about it. I don't. I'm going
And
to,
see, if you
yeah.
strategize to have that hour, you can
Yes.
actually take it. If you don't, it may be 9 o'clock at night and you're going, oh my gosh. And then you get up and do the same thing again. So what are some of the things that you like to do to nurture yourself for Mother's Day?
So I like to definitely give. So I like to think about the women in my life that have helped me. And so I like to reach out to them and connect with them. And I also like to just, pamper myself a little bit.
Yeah.
And my husband and my boys are really good about doing that. Like my son made me a heart Lego with like he turned into like a keychain. So, it's really just, understanding and asking myself, like, what do I need today? What do I really want today? And asking for that. So that's not something I've always been really good at, is what
Yeah,
are
you're
your
getting
needs?
better.
How are you going to get your needs met today, and ask for it? Because if you don't ask
Yes.
for it, you're not going to get it. And you can't really get upset for not getting it because you didn't ask for it. So
So
yeah.
those are some good things. The other thing I wanted to just for the women out there, the mothers that are out there, and you and I talked about this, especially that day when you were moving around, and it was a chaotic day, right, for you.
Yeah.
And I loved what we came up with, and it was allowing the imperfection to be okay. It's not going to be in a nice little box with a bow on it. And if you can allow that to be okay, you're going to just flow, because the minute it's not, then we have to control everything. And then we get in our anxiety, we get in our head, the mind body connection, which you're talking about, starts to kick in. And then all we're doing is just running our tapes, right?
Exactly.
So is there any advice besides what we just gave them, is being okay with it not being okay, right? And going with it. What else would you give them as a kind of an ending thought for us today?
I would say, and this is something you and I have talked about, Nina, in the past, is take off the perfect hat and put on the practical hat, right? and know when you're in work mode, know when you're in mom mode. And those things are they flow together right now, because I might be at the dining room table on a conference call and my kids are doing homework right next to me. So I have mom mode on and I have work mode on at the same time. So I think it's just about being present and being okay if the dishes are in the sink and you're tired and you just want to go watch a movie and the kids are a bit like that. You have to allow yourself space, give yourself space, because I can tell you that with my kids, they do want to do a good job, and we have set up like a point system. So if they do good, I'll give them points every day. If they do bad, I take the points away. And so now they're like, oh, I'm going to lose a point. No, I will do exactly what you say. I'm like, wow, this reward system's working really, really good, especially when I'm on a conference call and they start screaming, I'm like, you've lost a point. So,
well, hey, whatever works is what works, right? But I love the fact of, taking off the perfect hat. And I think that's really important. And the one last thing I'd also like to say for you and for every single mom out there is to be sweet with yourself, be tender, because you're doing the best you can. And, it's not one incident. If you happen to lose it, you'll lose it. and just allow that to be okay. You know, regroup, recenter, recharge, re-strategize, right?
Exactly.
And allow that imperfection to be okay. So with that, Miss Erin, thank you so much for being with us today, and happy Mother's Day.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.